Continuing our series of lectures on the perfect essay series, here's the perfect conclusion. We've already talked about perfect intro in the body and now conclusions. This is from the 2005 FRQ Magnussol's essay. Here we go. All right, so we've talked about all the different scores that you can get. You can get a 1 in thesis up to a 1. You can get up to a 4 in evidence and commentary. And now we're going to talk about sophistication, the most difficult of the points to obtain, in my opinion. You can get up to 1 point in sophistication. It is difficult because sophistication is a holistic score, meaning we don't look at a section in the essay and say, yes, sophistication, check, 1. No, we look at the entirety of the essay and we say, is this essay written in a way that it conveys sophistication? And if so, you get a 1. Okay, what's a 0? You get no point if you're general or vague or hint at more complex arguments but never get into it. Uh, your examples are not relevant, specific, overly simplistic writing. It's not exciting at all, and it's not catchy. You don't seem like you really understand what you're talking about or care about what you're talking about. Now, how do you get a 1? Okay. To get a 1, you need to offer original insight, and this is important. Remember that in this case, sophistication is about the rhetorical essay, right? Sophistication varies depending on the essay, but overall it means the same thing. But when it comes to the rhetorical essay, you're reading a text that is written really well and it makes the point very clearly, usually. Okay. So if you're going to talk about that essay, you need to talk about it in a way that is original and fresh and not repetitive of what the text already said. And that's difficult, right? It might be easier to obtain sophistication in argumentative, perhaps even synthesis, the easiest of them all, I think. But in rhetorical, it is very difficult to obtain. So we want to do some of the following things. We want to be creative, have meaningful language, and here are some of the ways that the College Board has dictated that this is the way you can obtain sophistication. Here are 5 ways. This video will talk about these 5. Demonstrate a complex understanding of a nuanced thesis. Understanding the limitations of the argument, showing awareness of other arguments, recognizing the complexities of the examples provided, and writing in a style that is especially attractive. Okay, let's talk about these 5. Nuanced thesis. What does that mean? Well, let's look at an example from that Magnusol essay response to the 2005 prompt. Not by describing a misleading infomercial, but by becoming one. The article discredits the fallacies present in such advertisements by exaggerating its own faulty logic, thereby becoming a Trojan horse. As it mimics and debunks consumer culture, it is also creating a caricature of the gullible consumer and sending an implicit message of caution to a society that lies enveloped in this very materialistic culture. Wow. Okay. The thesis is clear, right? The thesis is the purpose of the text. What was the purpose of the text? Well, the article is mocking consumer culture and mocking the way advertisements present themselves to the viewer, to the consumer, right? So you could just say that. That's you acknowledge the purpose of the text. Right, but a nuanced thesis would say something a little more complex, and this is what she does here. She says that by becoming one, the article discredits the fallacies present in such advertisements by using them and exaggerating them, and thereby becoming a Trojan horse, sort of like infiltrating the idea. It's a nice little illusion here, infiltrating the idea to then destroy from within. That's the point here. What else can you do to get a sophistication point? Well, understanding of the limitations of an argument. Now, by understanding the limitations of an argument, we mean not only that the argument is incomplete, but rather that the argument, in the way it is phrased in the text, has implicit points, right? Like it has premises on which its claims stand. And if so, you should probably point those out because it'll make you seem more aware of the totality of the argument. So, playing on the common theme in consumerism that one must need what everyone needs, the text is able to bring to light the illogical nature of such claims. The central theme is not only mimicked, but its inherently flawed nature is further debunked by replacing what would normally be credible sounding, at least slightly plausible science with complete nonsense scientific jargon. Okay, how is this paragraph, sorry, how are these 2 sentences uh, exhibiting their understanding of the limitations of an argument, right? The argument itself doesn't say all of this. The text doesn't say all of that. This is inferences based on the reader. And these are right, these are correct, but these are implicit within the text, never stated directly. So to say that its heart, the heart of the argument is in the theme and consumerism, wanting what others have, that isn't explicitly said in the text. It is implicitly present in the text. And it is good that this writer brings it out because now those things, those moments that you could have missed in the text that others might have missed, you didn't. And now you have sophistication. So, as the text presents the Magnasols, it is not only describing a fake product for comedic purposes, but it is also presenting the common tropes of the qualified expert, the Orient's traditional medicinal know-how, and the consumer who believes it all and orders the product, right? That's funny. But what it's good about this here is that the text only really describes a fake product for comedic purposes. I mean, it's that's its immediate purpose, right? But she says that's not the only purpose. Below it, right? More deeply into it, its real purpose is to attack consumer culture, right? But by pointing that out is how you get sophistication. How else can you get sophistication? Show awareness of other arguments, not necessarily of counter arguments, but show awareness of arguments implicit within the big argument. An argument is never one thing. It's one thing that diversifies into so many other, like the roots of a tree. That's how arguments are constructed. So here is an awareness of other arguments. As he makes a joke at society's expense, because it is a comedic, I mean, it's from The Onion and it's a comedic piece, he is exposing a greater societal problem that the mostly educated readership, yada, yada, yada. So this is at the beginning. This is in the introduction. I want to say this is the second sentence, perhaps. This is at the end of the essay. Okay. Creating caricature tropes to highlight the comedic nature of consumers' ignorance. The writer of this text is able to convey a larger message of recognizing how the media takes advantage of the ignorant, the gullible, and so on and so forth. And here she includes a neat little example from different people that were quoted in the text. Helene Cohn and Geoff the Angelus. It was neat, right? The Helene Cons and Geoff the Angeluses of the world, right? So showing awareness of the implicit arguments within a text also increases the likelihood you'll get sophistication. Why? Because you understand it. You understand it more than what it says. And that's the point. The point is that if the writer truly accomplishes his purpose and he used great strategies to do so, well, you need to sound convinced. And if you're not, I won't be. The complexities of the examples. Whenever you quote the text and you relate with the text, which you have to always and forever, amen. When you do it, you have to do it in a way that you understand fully what the example is doing. Okay, here. The word pseudoscience in particular is sprinkled throughout the text. Why? To demonstrate how any real science present in commercials is generally highly exaggerated, right? Or majorly unfounded scientific sounding words. Now, you cannot just say that the word writer uses the word pseudoscience to mean the opposite. Yeah, but in what way? Well, that any real science, not just the pseudoscience, but even any real science that is in commercials, in actual commercials, is highly exaggerated. That's good. Following the general plot line of the advertisement, the scientist presents his product as one with supposed traditional success. Keyword traditional. Citing reflexology as being, quote, practiced in the Occident for over 11 years, the article's fake advertising mocks appeals to tradition. To tradition. How so? Well, practice in the Occident. That's where we live. To tradition evoked by allusions to traditional Oriental medicine. And that's the point, right? The idea here, the writer is picking up on the implicit mockery here. How often do these commercials point to ancient societies and say it's been done for such a long time, it's been used for many years, therefore it must work, it must be amazing, it is traditional, right? It's an argument from nature. If it's natural, it is good. Really? Always? Forever? Okay. So that's something to keep in mind here, right? The writer is acutely aware that the examples she's extrapolated from the text are very complex and they mean a lot. The article furthers its exaggeration of the rigidity of consumerism in its caricatures of loyal customers, Helene Kahn and Geoff DeAngelis, which we met before, and creating fake personas of the typical gullible consumer. That's neat because they could have just said these are people that are quoted, right? But they're not. These are fake personas of the typical gullible consumers, you and me, right? The text is making fun of the nonsense consumers will buy into and the things people will believe when the aforementioned scientist in a white lab coat says it. It's neat. There are so many the way that this writer wish he engages the examples is so complex, and it denotes that the text was actually as complex as it is purported to be. Okay, the last one, and I think the most important one in getting sophistication, because this is the one that most people see and most people like, writing in a style that is especially attractive. Here are some phrases that I've cut out from the entirety of the essay. Okay, the right at the beginning, unpacking the illogical briefcase of the average salesman misleading advertisement, making a joke at society's expense, becoming a Trojan horse, nice little allusion, debunks consumer culture, creating a caricature of the gullible. To properly criticize the infomercial, this article becomes one. That's neat. That's the beginning of body one. Such sensational statements are exaggerated to highlight their ridiculousness. At least slightly plausible science with complete nonsense scientific jargon. It's a funny little phrase. It's opinionated, and this is good. The text is making fun of the nonsense consumers buy into and the things people will believe when the aforementioned scientist in a white lab. And I think this is also good too because the writer has a very distinct voice, right? So you've got slightly plausible science. It's supposed to be funny, and I think it is. In a white lab coat says it. It's again, it's comedic, and I think in many ways she's mimicking the tone of the text she's analyzing, and this is good because it increases the chances of you receiving sophistication. Creating caricatured tropes to highlight the comedic nature of the consumer's ignorance. I am not. I am not. It isn't lost on me that there's alliteration here, and that there has been alliteration throughout. Becoming the advertisement only to deride it. That's a nice turn of phrase. And the last is the conclusion. Um, the AP reader does not look at the conclusion and say, is this phenomenal? It is. Okay, sophistication. Sophistication is a point that has to be earned throughout. But the conclusion is a strong indicator of how sophisticated you can be in your writing. So we should not throw away our conclusions. Conclusions are not opportunities for you to say what you've already said. Conclusions are opportunities for you to pack as much meaning as possible. Now, what I'm going to show you now is her conclusion, one sentence. And I want you to consider that in this one conclusion, I think this is the knockout that gives her the sophistication point. And here are the reasons why she gets that sophistication point. Okay, becoming the advertisement only to deride it and creating a stage set with caricatured characters playing their roles in a silly commercial mimicry. The article uses satire as a Trojan horse to a greater societal issue, the consumerist dilemma. Wow. Okay. Why, first of all, why is it a great conclusion? It's short, right? This is good. Two, it isn't summary based, though there is context here, right? It has a snappy summary of it all. I don't feel sluggish. It has alliteration. You've got creating a stage set with caricature characters. It's got metaphors, playing their roles in a silly commercial mimicry. It's got an illusion, Trojan horse, which we talked about earlier. It's got a theme, the real societal issue that we're talking about, which is the consumerist dilemma. That's a great theme. And it's got great language and voice. It's one snappy conclusion. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. If you really want to get sophistication and you want to write a conclusion that's worthwhile, try some of these strategies. These are definitely going to work for you. All right, that's it.